Hello and welcome to Camp, the Catholic audiobook in a month podcast. My name is William Wilson, and today is day 8 of The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. I will be reading the 4th part of the Ways of Brother Lawrence. He speaks on fixing one's gaze on God alone. You'll hear about Brother Lawrence's death and how he approached it without any anxiety. He expresses a willingness to suffer for many years, and this reminds me of Saint Thérèse in her illness. And he talks about suffering for the love of God. At one point, there's a really interesting section. He speaks of faith not being needed, but what he means by that is that it's been swallowed up in sight. To me, this perhaps indicates the spiritual marriage, the final mansion of Saint Teresa of Avila. And finally, he talks about how one prays in every place, and it's not indeed using many words. Lots of good stuff today. Let's get started. Our good brother, on the other hand, kept steadfastly in the way of faith, which never changes. He was ever constant, for the reason that his one study was to carry out the duties of the station wherein God had placed him, counting nothing commendable but the virtues of that station. Instead of watching his dispositions or stopping to test the way in which he walked, he fixed his gaze on God alone, the goal of his race, and sped along towards him by daily acts of meekness and righteousness and love. He set himself to do rather than to reflect on what to do. The devotion of Brother Lawrence, resting on this solid base, was not given to fantasies. He was convinced that such as are genuine are most often signs of feebleness in a soul, which is content rather with God's gifts than with himself. From the time of his novitiate, there was nothing of this in his conduct. At least, nothing was heard or seen of it by those who had his confidence and to whom he commonly unbosomed himself. All his days he followed in the footprints of the saints, along the sure and certain path of faith. He strayed not from the beaten track, which leads to salvation by the practice of those virtues which the Church has declared from the beginning. At all else he looked askance. His great common sense and the light afforded by his simple faith warned him of those sunken rocks which one finds in the spiritual life and on which so many souls make shipwreck, letting themselves drift along the current of curiosity and imagination, of love of novelty and human guidance. Yet nothing is easier than to avoid these perils when we seek God alone. In the matter of religion, what is new needs careful examination, inasmuch as virtue is not of the number of things, which grow slowly to perfection, but, on the contrary, is perfect from the very first. Prepared by such a life, Brother Lawrence saw death draw near without any anxiety. His patience had been great indeed through all his life, but it waxed stronger ever as he approached the end. He was never in the least fretful when he was most racked with pain. Joy was manifest not only on his countenance, but still more in his speech, so much so, in fact, that those who visited him were constrained to ask whether he was not suffering. "Forgive me," he replied. "Yes, I do suffer. The pains in my side sore trouble me, but my spirit is happy and well content." They added, "Suppose God will that you suffer for 10 years, what then?" "I would suffer," he answered, "not for 10 years only, but till the day of judgment, if it be God's will. And I would hope that he would continue to aid me with his grace to bear it joyfully." His one desire was that he might suffer something for the love of God, for all his sins, and finding in his last illness a favorable occasion for suffering in this life, he embraced it heartily. Purposely he bade the brethren to turn him on his right side, He knew that this position gave great pain, and therefore wished to remain therein to satisfy his burning desire to suffer. A brother who was watching at his bed wished to relieve him in some measure, but twice he answered, "I thank you, my dear brother, but I beg of you to let me bear just a little for the love of God." Often in the hour of pain he would cry out with fervor, "My God, I worship thee in my infirmities. Now I shall have something to bear for thee. Good, be it so. May I suffer and die with thee." Then he would repeat those verses of the 51st Psalm. "Create in me a clean heart, O God. Cast me not away from thy presence. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation." As the hour when he was to leave this life drew near, he exclaimed frequently, "Oh, faith, faith." This was indeed more expressive of his life than any longer utterance could be. His worship of God never ceased. He told a brother of the community that he hardly needed faith any longer to realize God present in his soul, for already faith was well nigh swallowed up in sight. So amazing was his boldness in that dark valley from which so many shrink, that he told one who had asked him that he feared neither death nor hell, neither the judgment of God nor the attacks of the evil one. His words were so full of comfort and of grace that many of the brethren questioned him. One of them asked him if he knew how terrible a thing it was to fall into the hands of the living God, inasmuch as no man, whoever he be, knows for certain whether he deserves God's love or not. "I agree," said Brother Lawrence, "but I should not wish to know it for fear of vanity. We can do nothing better than abandon ourselves to God." After he had received the last sacraments, a brother asked him if he were easy and what his mind was busied with. This was the reply: "I am doing what I shall do through all eternity, blessing God, praising God, adoring God, giving him the love of my whole heart. It is our one business, my brethren, to worship him and love him, without thought of anything else." One of the community, having commended himself to Brother Lawrence's prayers, and having begged him to entreat of God for him the true spirit of prayer, he replied that there was need of labor on his part also to make himself worthy of such a gift. These were his last words. On the morrow, which was Monday the 12th of February, 1691, at 9 o'clock in the morning, without any pain or struggle, without losing in the slightest the use of any of his faculties, Brother Lawrence passed away in the embrace of his Lord and rendered his soul to God in the peace and calm of one who had fallen on sleep. Nothing can give a clearer picture of a true Christian philosophy in practice than the life and death of this good brother. Yet another of that band, who, from times of old, have forsaken the world to dedicate with single heart their powers to cultivate the life of the Spirit, and to come to a knowledge of God and his Son Jesus Christ, devoted souls who have taken the gospel as their only rule and have faithfully professed the holy philosophy of the cross. It is thus that St. Clement of Alexandria describes them in the 7th book of the Stromata. It would seem that he had in view a man just like Brother Lawrence when he said that the greatest business of a philosopher, that is, a wise Christian, is prayer. Such a one prays in every place, at every time, not indeed using many words, or thinking to be heard for his much speaking, but in secret, in the depths of his soul, while walking or conversing with his fellow men, or reading, at the table and when at work. His praises rise to God unceasingly, not only in the morning and at noon, but in all his actions he glorifies God as do the seraphim. Continual contemplation through prayer on spiritual things makes him meek, gentle, patient, while strong as iron to battle with temptation, giving no hold upon himself either to pleasure or to sorrow. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Tomorrow I will read the fifth and final part of The Ways of Brother Lawrence. You'll hear about the joy of contemplation and how it renders one insensible to all empty pleasures. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, rate, share, and help us grow. Also, please check out oratebooks.com, now featuring The Ways of Mental Prayer by Vital Léodet, praised by Pope St. Pius X and spiritual leaders across generations. This masterwork guides readers through the transformative journey of prayer, from its foundational practices to its most profound mystical heights. That's ORATE books.com. If you'd like to learn more about us, please visit camp.fm. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.